And good evening. We are live at Grumpy Acres Farm. All right. So, past month or so, we have been talking about the three pillars of modern homesteading. We talked with All American Prepper on the food aspect of it. We talked to Hacks from Hacks for the Homesteader for the modern self reliance portion of it. And tonight, we're going to talk to a guy that has kind of become a guru on the subject of the third pillar, which is community. So I want everybody to give a big round of applause in your own house to Tag from Lifetime Free. How you doing, man?
Doing good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Well, like I said, tonight we're going to talk about building community. And personally, I think out of the three pillars that I spoke about, that is probably the most important one because it supports the other two as much as it supports the bigger idea of living a lifetime free, right? So I want to thank you for coming on. I know you're busy. Kind of gonna let the subject go wherever we want. Although I do have two things that I want to talk about before we get into the actual meat and potatoes of building community.
Good.
The first one. The first one is the idea of the noble lie. This is something I was reading about. If people don't know about it, the noble lie was a part of a story that Plato wrote, and it's a fallacy or a lie that is perpetrated by the elite in order to sustain social harmony so that things don't fall apart. And I started thinking about it, Tag. I kind of want your thoughts on this. There's been a lot of noble lies told to the American people over time.
Yeah, you think?
some of them have dealt directly with things that affect people's communities.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that popped into my head first was the idea that the government can be a provider and the government can be the head of your household. Are there any thoughts on that or any other ones that you can think of just right off the top of your head?
Well, I mean, I think there's such a huge picture here, right? I mean, they yes, they want the government the head of the household. This is why they try to blend gender. This is why they try to equal right everything. This is why they do all of that so that we don't look to each other for leadership. We look, to the government for that. So yeah, this has been going on a long time. And there's a whole bunch of examples of the noble lie that you were talking about. A whole bunch.
Yeah. Well, and the sad part about it is it's destroyed the American community. It really has.
Yeah.
And it's the whole reason why we're here talking about this, because we have to make a concerted effort to rebuild these communities.
Yes.
And any ideas on how to combat these lies, just as a starting point for people to think about as they're beginning this journey that they're on to start building communities?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, this is actually not even hard. I mean, at the end of the day, and you've heard me preach this a million times, every speech I've ever given, anywhere we've ever done, you've heard me talk about this, and it's simply ignore them.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as we're asking for permission, as long as we're looking to them for permission, they're going to have control over us. If we stop asking for that permission and we stop looking to them for leadership, they won't exist. But and you know this, you were a soldier.
Mm-hmm.
Every
Marine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but even as a Marine, you'll know this. I mean, I would expect more knowledge on the subject from somebody in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. But even
with Marine,
okay,
just talk slow. I'll follow.
All right. The leader only works as long as people follow. The fact of the matter is, if the people quit following, there is no leader. I mean, so yeah, I got a simple answer for you. Quit asking permission.
Nope.
That's it.
Pretty easier said than done, though.
Well,
it's in fact, we're doing a talk at Self Reliance Festival this year. This year we're not doing food preservation. We're gonna the title of the speech is Decide,
mm-hmm.
and that's what it's going to be about. Is that initial decision?
Garen, anything worth having will not be easy.
Oh,
right. And anything easy is not usually worth having. Right. As my friend Rebecca quoted today, as I'm quoting her. So of course it's hard. But sitting around and doing nothing is harder. Look at what's happened to this country over the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or 40 years. It's that lack of action that's got us here. And now look at the shit sandwich we have to deal with.
Right.
I'm guilty.
Well,
My dad's guilty, and his dad's guilty.
I'm gonna take what you said a step further, and I'm gonna say the thing that's even harder than not doing anything is doing something and thinking you're doing it right, and then realizing that you're not. That's to me, for me, on our journey, that's been the hardest thing to deal with.
Well,
Is
isn't that the noble
understanding
lie?
that we were headed in the right direction, but we were not. We weren't committed. We were
Yep.
not committed like we are now.
But isn't that a result of the noble lie?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And for anybody who don't understand the noble lie, another way you could say it is programming. I mean, another way there's a lot of words you could use to describe it, right?
Uh,
The fact of the matter is that conditioning and that programming and that, you know, that American dream that we're going to go work 40 years at a company, we're going to build a house, and we're going to move up houses every 5 years because that's the American dream, and we're going to, you know, spend beyond our limits, and we're going to borrow. That's all part of that conditioning and that noble lie, because that system needs propped up. It's not about you. They don't give a shit about you. As soon as you no longer become a taxpayer, and you become, you know, some type of strain upon the system, they're going to do everything they can to get you to die and get you off the dole so they can wash, rinse, repeat to the next generation. You don't mean shit to them. All you are is a method in which to keep the entire lie up and going. That's it.
yeah. And you know what's really, I'm saying funny in a Schadenfreude sort of way, not funny, haha. It's kind of sad actually. There's an entire segment of the population that now that the demographics are changing, that are figuring out that they no longer matter as much because of that very subject you were just talking about.
Yep.
And it's really coming as a shock to them, and because they've been so long believing the noble lie, and now that the reality is hitting them in the face, it's kind of hurting them. They're getting a rude awakening.
Yeah. Yeah. And that rude awakening is going to continue. I mean, I think I quote you all the time, G, a long time ago. You had said to me, nothing's going to happen, kind of pissy in a grumpy mood, kind of, you know, you said, nothing's going to happen until, yeah, you grumpy, right? But nothing's going to happen until the soccer moms and NASCAR dads feel the pain.
Yep, exactly.
You know, that's a good G quote, right? And that's absolutely true. But the problem is that pain is beginning to be felt further and further and further.
Right.
You
More
know?
and more people.
Right. We're on the verge of World War III, and we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars overseas, and yet we have many people at home. I know a lot personally who are struggling to pay the bills because rent's gone up the roof and milk's gone up the roof and everything's expensive and all of that stuff, and yet their attention is somewhere else. They only care about you guys at election time, by the way.
Yep. That was, you know, it's kind of funny you bring that up because we were just talking the other day. You know, when I got out of the Marine Corps, we lived in a 900 square foot house, $310 a month mortgage payment, 2 kids, made way less than I make now. And because of all the inflation without the kids, without the mortgage, we're living the same lifestyle we were living back then.
Yeah.
You know, where's the only thing difference is that the house is paid off.
Yeah.
And I don't care what anybody says, we own this property.
That's right.
I don't care what anybody says. The whole taxation thing I was talking about with Spags, we own this property. That's just the truth of the matter. Okay, so defeat the noble lie by ignoring it.
That's
right.
Correct, 100%. And you build community, you build parallel, you build all that, but that all is just a side effect of ignoring them. Ignoring them is the beginning.
I can't lie on this. That's a hell of a lot simpler answer than I thought it was going to be. Okay, so the next thing. So our friend is always saying that every decision we make is an economic decision, and that it's not necessarily money that we're talking about. It's some sort of capital. And I had heard this before, but I did some reading up on it, getting ready for this live. Social capital. And
I disagree with that statement, just for the record, but continue.
Okay. And I did not realize how, as we've built the community, I did not realize how important social capital is to the whole process. And not only, even before you get to the point that what the community does in regards to social capital, what the lack of it has done to our society and the situation everybody's put in because of that. You want to tell people a little bit about social capital from where you're sitting and how you think it's kind of shaped the narrative that we've got going on, if you will?
Yeah, sure. I think I want to start with saying that every decision in life is an energy decision. It's not an economic decision. And this is
Okay.
important, in my opinion, it's important to make the distinction. And I understand exactly what Spags is saying, super brilliant guy. But the fact of the matter is money is nothing more than an exchange of energy. And so, and when you talk about whether it's social, whatever, it's the same thing as that. Where are we applying our energy at any one given moment? Am I applying my energy building a fence, or am I applying my energy going to your house to have a party with the rest of the community? Right? It's an energy decision. And so when you talk about social capital, I kind of tend to look at that more as social energy use, and that, when people are willing to give of themselves and to do that next step and to donate their energy, which is the single most valuable thing you have. It's a finite resource. Your gas tank is only so full, and when it runs out, it's going to run out, right? Mm-hmm. Money, I can make more money. Yeah. Just a fact. But the fact of the matter is my gas tank is where my gas tank is, right? On the energy scale. So,
and for anybody out there, when he says his gas tank, he's talking about his physical and emotional gas tank. He's not talking about his physical in his vehicles. That's what he's talking about.
No, I'm referring to you were born with X amount of energy to expel through the course of your life. Right? You have so many days on this earth. It's finite. It's not renewable. It's not any of those things. You can absolutely make more money, which is why I disagree with the statement that every decision is an economic decision, because I think every decision is an energy decion. Where do you put attention?
I think the concept behind both of them are exactly the same, though.
Yeah,
I think they are. Okay, let's backstep, because Barb asked, what is social capital? Okay, Barb, so social capital, it's okay, a set of shared values or resources that allows individuals to work together. Mm-hmm. It's the ability to obtain resources and favors, information for your own personal use. Mm-hmm. It's how members of society band together, because in a shared goal.
Let's see. Yeah, you mean give me a community example of that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So this will help Barb and others as we go through this. So let's say that I pick up the phone and I call for a homestead rotation, which you guys know we do out here in our community. And 30 people show up to the homestead rotation, and a few people who are in the community don't show up. Now, they didn't show up maybe because they were sick or whatever, and that part's fine. But let's say now the next week or the next month, G pulls a community rotation, and the same people aren't there. What happens is pretty quick, you haven't gained any social capital. You've gained no chits, as the movie Waterworld would say. So when you pick up the phone and call and say, hey, everybody come build a barn for me, nobody shows up. Well, why? Right?
Because I wasn't there helping you.
Because you wasn't there helping out. That's right. So you don't have the chits. And so what I always try to do, just as the counter to that, what I always try to do is when there's something going on, I do everything I can to be there, because what I'm trying to do is save my chits, so that when the day comes, I really need help, or when the day comes, there's a big project coming on, or whatever it is. When I put out a call, everybody will come. You know why? Because I earned it. Right. People ask me all the time about, through my channel and through email and that, how do you get into the inner circle? This is such a funny question to me. We were just talking about this today. And I always tell them, be involved. That's it. Yep. That's the magic question, right? Those of us who are involved are the ones that sit down and, right? That would be what it is. So I need younger social capital at 70. It's getting harder. Yeah, energy capital is rough.
Yes, it is. Okay, now I'm gonna talk about something you just said, the whole chit idea.
Yeah.
I understand it, but I'm not sure at this point in my life. I'm not sure I really like that analogy, because of the problem I've had with keeping that ledger running in my head, and I don't want people thinking that we're out here keeping tally. No, we are not. We're not keeping a ledger on each other. We're not keeping tally. It's just a part of human nature where these things naturally happen, and it doesn't. When you're keeping tally, you run a risk of being too concerned about it. You know what I mean? And you can end up, number one, you can end up shooting yourself in the foot by making yourself crazy, like I have a lot of times in the past. But you can also get to the point where it's like, I'm not helping that guy because he's not helping me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's our own version of the social credit score,
right?
In a lot of ways. And there's no tally. It's not like you're keeping track. But I can just tell you that if in a community environment, if someone's never there, I'm not going to invest my energy capital into it. I'm just not going to, because it's
Right.
so valuable and I have so little of it. It's not a burn. I don't dislike them. I wish them the best of luck. If I'm, can assist in some way, fine. But, I've got to measure my energy capital. Just like you've got a whole farm to run, just like me. It's super valuable. 4 hours on a nice day is how valuable to you.
Oh man, it's gold.
It's really gold. It's gold. So I'm willing to give of everything I have. I'll spend my money on my resources, my tools, whatever it is, to help another homestead, as long as it's a mutual endeavor. If it's not mutual, I'm not interested.
The one thing that you guys do that I don't want to say it irritates me, because it doesn't irritate me.
It's okay.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because it's completely understandable. So I work during the week, and the rest of these guys in the community, well, not the rest of them, but a lot of the guys in the community, like Tag works, but he's got a pretty flexible schedule. We've got other guys that are retired, and their whole thing is working on their homesteads. You guys do those projects on the weekdays, and I'm like, I can't get off. I can't do it. Just drives me nuts that I can't be there, because I want to be there helping everybody, man.
Yeah, but here's the thing, bud. If somebody's at work, nobody looks down upon that.
I know.
And I would even go a step further. That if somebody misses one, no big deal. Somebody misses two, probably no big deal, right? But if it becomes this habitual pattern over time,
I would rather be helping you guys, helping everybody else in the community, than being at work. That's the problem.
Of course you would.
Yeah. Someday I'll get there. I'm not there yet. I'll get there someday.
Yeah. Someday.
Barb said, thank you for answering the question, by the way.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. But the lack of social capital in our society these days. I was thinking about it the other day. When we lived in the suburbs, we knew the person next to us, and we knew a person across the street. We did not know the community, right? We did not know the community. And since we moved here, I don't know. I've met the people that live up and down the road. I don't hang out with them socially and stuff, but I at least know who they are, and they know who I am, and I've got a much larger circle of acquaintances and people that I consider part of my community than I've ever had in my life now. And I think it's the result of us purposely, intentionally trying to build a community here. You got any insights into somebody that's not in a community, but they want to start building social capital, but they're not, they live across the country, they can't commit to something here, but they want to start building social capital somehow, even though they're not connected with the community. Any idea on how somebody could do that?
Yeah. Can I ask a question before I answer? Are you referring to someone, let's say, out of state, who has the intention of being here but can't be here?
Well, that or somebody that's in the chat right now that wants to start figuring out how to do it and wants to start building some sort of social capital, because it's not building social capital is not something that comes naturally to a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's something that I've learned you really have to work at least in my case.
Yes. I think it's kind of two different answers, because if what you're trying to do is build community where you are, right? And you let's say you live in an apartment, or you don't have the resources or whatever it is, but you want to work on community where you are. Well, again, my answer would be the same as I said earlier, which is be involved. Go find a farmer, help them out, go help with gardens, find a community, go to your conferences, go to these things, look on Facebook. I mean, you Google homesteading group in Wisconsin, I promise you there's hundreds of them, right? So, I mean, you can begin to build social capital by being active, even if it's just on the internet, right? In Facebook groups and in those kind of things. There's a lot of groups I'm part of in different social media platforms that discuss things like off-grid living, which is something I really enjoy, learning how all the widgets and all of that stuff work. So those people who are in there, who are answering questions and who are active, I think are building a form of social capital, so that when I ask a question and they answer, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a smart guy. He's had a lot of really good things to say in the past, right? And so there's a lot of ways to go about doing it. If what you're talking about is building social capital inside our community or any community, and let's say that, that you're out of state, it's really, really hard to do if you aren't here. Make sure you're taking a couple trips a year, right? Come down to the Midwest Preparedness Festival, come down to, or wherever you are, right? The Wisconsin Preparedness Festival, whatever it is, and get involved and be kind and be part of the solution. And I think you begin to build trust which also helps with social capital, right? Because the amount of capital or chit you get paid per event has a lot to do with your honor, how much somebody trusts you, and are you worthy of it, right? Which is something that's defined 100% by your actions. And so I think you can do both ways, but that's why I asked the question. I wasn't exactly sure which way you wanted that
Well,
question.
it's good you differentiate it, because it's different answer for different situations,
Yeah.
right? You know, and I think that the point of going to the festivals is a great point, because you know how many years, gosh, I went to Midwest Preparedness for 5 or 6 years. Well, we did, Yoda and I did, for 5 or 6 years before the idea of community even
Yeah.
came to mind.
Yeah.
Even started. So, it's a good thing to get out there. And a great place. Um, the calendar on freesteading is populated with stuff, and the Midwest Preparedness Project calendar is starting to get populated with stuff. A lot of the excuse me, a lot of the same stuff, but it's growing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole um, there's a whole community out there that's pointing in the same direction as what we are, as far as trying to build this stuff and get people going on the right channel, or the right track, if you will. And so I think that's a great point. Going back to the original thing, the first thing you have to do is decide. You got to decide you're going to do it, just plain and simple.
Yeah. Grumpy, I
Okay.
know hundreds of people who are sitting on their couch paralyzed because they're analyzing, right? I know so many of them, and I tell them all the same thing: put a stake in the ground. You're going to make some good decisions, you're going to make some bad decisions, but until you take that first step, you're never going to get anywhere.
Right. Right.
Which is,
Okay. So we've talked about how people can combat the noble lie, that the noble lies, plural, that are destroying our communities across the country. We've talked about the idea of social capital, and what it does, well, what the lack of it does, and
Mhm.
then how to start building it. Let's go into, and this is where you've got a little bit more expertise than a lot of people, because you've kind of by action have been a little bit of the driving force of
Mhm.
helping enlarge the community here.
Mhm.
And talk about some of the ideas that you have whenever somebody finally gets to the point where they're either looking to start their own community, or they're looking to go together with a group of people in a community. First off, does community look the same for everybody?
No.
No. How? What? Give
100%
me some
no.
ideas of what community looks like.
Yeah. So, as you know, G, I've traveled around a lot. I've spoke a lot about community and about how to form it. And I visited a lot of communities. Last year I was at, Jim Gale's Food Forest Abundance in Florida, for example. And so that's a, homesteading community, but built very, very different than the way, our community works. And what I mean by that is it's way more loose, right? People come in and out of it really, really fast. When, for us, we have almost, no turnover, right? I mean, we don't have people coming in and out. It's just not how it works.
Right.
Here I know that other communities that have strict rules, who pay dues, who have a council that runs it, or whatever it is, and we don't do any of those things. And so they're all very, very different. When I went to Michigan to speak at the Anyone Can Farm experience, there was a clear number one kind of leader guy there, and he kind of dictated everything. But again, that's not how it works here. And I tell people this all the time when they say, "Man, Tag, you built a great community." I'm like, "You don't understand. I didn't build a great community. A whole bunch of great people built a great community." It goes on every single day. And it just happened to me today and yesterday. I've got a lady coming in from Pennsylvania who is interested in looking at the community, maybe looking at land, and I can only get to so many things. And so another community member stepped in and helped her with arrangements for where to stay and what's going on. And it just got taken over. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything with it but exchange a contact. That was it. That's the only role that I had. And so they're all very, 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 very different. But I'm going to tell you from experience, and I grew up in the model of there's one person in charge, right, that makes all the rules. And those systems, in my opinion, are doomed to fail. I don't think they'll ever make it, just personally. But yeah, so there's lots of different ways to do it.
In Missouri, if someone has, say, 80 acres or more, they could sell, like, she's looking for community and
Yeah.
property.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I'll tell
Barb,
you what. I'll tell you
flip
what, Barb. Drop us an email on our YouTube email, the real grumpy acres at gmail.com. Drop us a line. Just so happens Yoda was a longtime real estate agent over on the Missouri side, and she knows people. She, even though she's not practicing real estate now, she still keeps in touch with people, and she knows people that can help you. If not directly, they can put you in touch with people in Missouri that can get you pointed in the right direction. And then go to Midwest Preparedness Festival. Guarantee you'll meet somebody that is semi close to you. Guarantee it.
You know, the other thing is that in the rural areas, which is typically where 80 acres is, sometimes it's hard to break apart acreage like that. It's not simple to do, you know. And if the land had already been broken apart in the last so many number of years, they don't want to do it again or whatever. But so it's going to have to be the right situation. But I think to Grumpy's point's exactly right. Go get involved. It's the single greatest thing you can do. You know, if I wasn't willing to step out and put my neck out on the line a little bit, right, a lot of the community wouldn't be here because I had to use YouTube and I had to use, some of those things. Grumpy, you too. You know, if we're not out there preaching it, so you got to be willing to put your neck out on there. When the fact of the matter is, I know it's going to surprise a lot of people. I'm really not this big extrovert. Right? I don't mind being alone. I don't mind being quiet. I don't mind any of those. I just don't. But we have to be willing to get out there, and so you're going to have to be willing to get out there.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we realized early on is if we truly believed what we say we believe, then we have to expose ourselves. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people email me, don't do that in your videos. Don't, just don't do that. And I'm like, you have to let people know, you have to talk to people, and you have to open up and share your experience with people. If you're not doing it, and that's something that was one of my calls to action on New Year's was go out and be evangelical about this stuff. You have to get out and you have to talk to people, and you have to share your experience with them and let them know that it's not just you. It's there are other people out there going through the same thing that you're going through.
Yeah. Well, and again, at what point in time are we done hiding? I mean, I think that's really my question. When are we as a people going to stand up and say no? When are we going to stand up and start ignoring them? I mean, my dad's father ignored them, and then my father ignored them, and through the vast part of my life, I mean, not ignored them. My dad's father complied, my dad complied, I complied for a large part of my life. When are we going to start ignoring? And when are we going to start standing up and saying, hey, I'm not hiding anymore. I have nothing to hide. There's nothing that I do is illegal. Nothing. I have freedom of speech through my First Amendment right, and I'm going to express it, and that's the way it is.
Exactly. So, once you did, and I'll take it a step further, and I kind of did this, but it's not like it. I haven't done it before on a whole lot of other occasions. Once you make that decision, burn your boats. Land where you're going to land, and burn your boats.
Yep.
Burn that bridge, metaphorically speaking. Do whatever you got to do to make it so you cannot turn around and go back.
Yep.
And I really appreciate the people that came across this land when there was nobody out here, and had no way to go home once they got out here.
Yeah.
And it was like survive or die. Thank God it's not that extreme, but it metaphorically, it can seem like it at times.
Yeah, well, I think at the end of the day, with what we started this conversation with the noble lie, with all of that's going on, we cannot trust them. And anybody who told me, walked at me and said, man, the government's so trustworthy, I would really think there was something wrong with you. I mean, I just would. So, I mean, we have to start that. And again, I don't know if we're going to talk about examples of the noble lie, but there are so many of them, even in our just recent past, in the recent part of, the United States, there's nothing to go there for. There's nothing to request from them from. All it is manipulation, greed. That's all it is. There's nothing else there. So we have to start creating our own systems. We have to start creating our own communities. We have to do it. Because if we don't, the alternative is Nazi Germany.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, just so many. That could be a whole
right
live by itself. The noble lies.
Right. So many of them. I mean,
I think that all combined, you know what the effect is exactly like you were talking about, inaction.
Mhm.
Inaction. You're either
They
you're
want
either
you inactive. They want you inactive.
yeah, you're
It's
either
not on purpose.
complacent
Mhm.
or you're fearful. Those are the two default settings for a lot of the American population these days.
Yep.
And I'm not gonna lie, for a long time I was in either
Mhm.
uh, one of those two settings, you know. But once you get out of it, guys, seriously, and I think Tag will agree with me. Once you get out of it and you actually step away from it, and the scales fall off your eyes or whatever you want to call it, it's so easy to see, and it's kind of a duh moment, isn't it?
Mhm.
Once you make the decision, it's kind of a duh. Why didn't I do this before?
Yeah, and guys, I want everyone out there to know that there's no criticizing anybody. Everybody's at a different place in their journey. There was a time, guys, and you can ask anybody who knows me well at all, that I was a staunch Republican. Right? I helped governors get elected. I did all kinds of things, and I totally believed it. When I was in the military, I thought we were out there, protecting freedom and spreading democracy and all of these things to the world. And so there was a time I drank all of that Kool-Aid, that I was all there. But after enough signs, that I had to wake up. So don't be down about where you are. We're certainly not criticizing it, but I'm telling you, there is an active plan out there every day to not make you take that first step. That plan has to do with your mortgage. It has to do with your interest rate. It has to do with, moving up to the nicer house every single day. It has to do with the potato chips. It has to do with the soda pop. It has to do with the corn syrup. It has to do with all of the medications, right? Everything that goes on in the world today. It has to do with the status quo. It has to do with the Nike commercials. It has to do with all of it. It's one gigantic noble lie that it's so noble that even the nobles believe it.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So on the topic of communities looking different, one thing I want to touch on is preppers and the idea of the prepper mag. That's a form of community, and this is where I've been pretty vocal about it. Preppers and homesteaders are not too terribly far removed. We're just different places on the same spectrum.
Yep.
So if you are not, if you're in the prepper side of the house, you're not in the homesteading house. This conversation about building community is just as applicable to you as it is to the person looking to move out on acreage and doing all this stuff, because you're spending. In fact, I'm gonna probably go out a little bit on a limb and say it's probably even more important, because the smaller your landing pad is, the more important all these things become, because they're just magnified when you get so many people in such a small space. And my hat's off. I know people that have had the same mutual assistance group for 17 years, and it's basically the same core people. Oh, hats off to them. That's a hard thing to do, man. That's a super hard thing to do. Because I've told people this before, but one of the reasons why our community works so well is because we've all got our own spaces that are far enough removed from each other that if we upset each other, and it happens quite often,
Oh, yes.
we can walk away. We can walk away and do our own thing, and it's not overtly affecting the dynamics of the group,
Yeah.
right?
Autonomy is critical to a successful community.
Right.
Some people could also say sovereignty is critical. Individual clan level sovereignty is critical to the development in a successful community.
Well, and I remember when we had our first discussion on building community. It was out when you were still working on pod one on your house,
Yeah.
and we had it out there. And I remember that was the big conversation, was autonomy and sovereignty.
Yep.
And it's such a big topic that it will, again, paralyzation by analyzation. You'll get to the point where trying to figure that one out by itself will cause the process to seize up. It almost did us.
Yeah.
But circumstances happen that our community just kind of grew organically, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, I think we're also very, very blessed in that there's a whole bunch of great leaders. We don't have centralized anything.
Right.
I think that's really important for everybody to understand, that there's not a centralized government inside of a community. There's not a centralized anything. And I think that's part of the magic.
Yep.
You know?
And I think even like Pastor Joe Fox down Shofar Mountain down in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
They are selling patches of land in their community, all in the same place, and they have nominally, through the church that they have, got a kind of a leadership program. But even then, people are pretty free to do what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But they, big on like-minded people, and I think you can say that about any community, right? Again, why don't you talk a little bit about diversity, equity, inclusion as far as it goes with building a community? Let's just talk about something that's going on right now, that diversity aspect.
Yeah, it's I sit on a board of directors, and I had an employee ask me just this last couple of weeks how I felt about diversion and diversity and inclusion and all of that kind of stuff. And I told him I thought it played no role in a company. That was my answer, because, just like in our community, or just like any other company runs, the best talent is what you should be looking for. Right. And none of that other stuff, in my opinion, should matter. And we've gotten so far off of this, we've gotten so far away as a country from that it's kind of like it's backwards. Remember where it used to be, where they would encourage you to hire women, or to hire, African Americans, or hire whatever it was in the workforce. And now it's totally gotten to a place where none of that matters anymore, but yet we still just can't hire the best people. And so I don't think it plays any role. I'm not, going to look at anybody other than, are they a great community member? Could they have a great attitude? Are they committed to the process? Do they have character? Do they have any sort of skill set? Right. I mean, those are the things that should matter, not the rest.
James Woods on X summed it up perfectly. Somebody posted a picture of a diverse group of women and captioned it, "Tell me something that's more important than diversity." And James Wood, God bless the man, replied, "Ability." And you hit it on the head, because you know where our community is really diverse. I mean, let's be honest. It's not very colorful. It's a lot of peach colored people in the community. Ability, the ability, the diversity of ability in our community is amazing.
Yes, we have amazing diversity.
Yes,
and I get in conversations with community members all the time who we disagree, and we get into and I walk away from those conversations with such pride that we have good enough relationships with each other that we can do that.
Right.
I love this. This is such a wonderful thing.
Well, and so Jason 007, just say no to diversity. I'm not saying don't say no to diversity. I'm saying embrace diversity. Say no to forcing it. You can't force it. Right?
Or maybe you can say it. I say yes to diversity in talents. I say yes to diversity in experience. I say yes to diversity in skill set.
Right.
But not on the things that don't matter, like gender or race, or what you do behind closed door. Who cares?
Exactly. And I think that's a huge thing in today's society, because the powers that be are pushing the narrative that completely contradicts that whole idea behind what we're talking about. So again, another thing to ignore.
Yep.
All right. So you travel around this past year. You spent a lot of time traveling around and talking to various festivals and organizations about community. If you were to surmise, give us the Cliff Notes version of what you share with people, in order to get them thinking towards this goal that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a hard question, but we'll tackle it, because like what we were talking about earlier, every community is different, and so, conversations in one place are very different than conversations in another. But I think really as a whole, what we have to do, if I was just going to kind of cliff note the whole thing, is how many people in the audience today can raise your hand and say that you feel safe? How many people can raise your hand and say that the systems that you expect to work, you believe will continue to work and should, work without flaw? How many people have you believe that the food system has your best interest in mind? How many people believe the medical system is out there to create cures and not just customers? How many people think the legislative branch is doing their job, or the judicial branch or the executive branch are doing their job? The fact of the matter is nobody's coming for you, and you got to go figure out how to do it, right? We got to figure out how to create these own systems for ourselves. And so I think it starts with internally, it starts with us, and we have to be the change. We have to be the ones willing to do our part plus a little bit. When that call comes in the middle of the night and somebody needs help, and yes, I'm tired. Yes, I don't want to go out, right? I don't want to go put my boots on. I don't want to go out and cut a cow up that's frozen in a pond, right? I don't want to go do these things. However, you got to be willing to do your part plus some. So the fact of the matter is, you don't need a bunch of rules. You don't need a bunch of things. What you need is 5 people who are willing to do their part plus some. And if you can figure out that, you can change the world, and start right there.
Right. And by changing the world, if you're looking at your community and building, we're talking about the physical community, bringing like-minded people in. Now, you're not all going to be pointed in the same direction. I think of it as a bunch of boats sailing around in the ocean. When we all start, we're all going in our own directions, and we come together and we're like, hey, let's go this direction. And so we're all going this direction, but we're all following our own paths. And that's what our community's like. Is our community is a bunch of boats following their own paths to the same goal. Yeah. And once that's the basis of it. Well, actually, backtrack. The basis of it is the family. The family, seriously.
The clan.
Yep. Whether you're a single guy or single lady that's being adopted into a group of people or something like that. But the clan is the most important. And then all our clans come together and we build this community. And like you're saying, that's when we start changing the world. And why don't you talk to the different ways that the inner community can start making changes in the greater community. So well, first off, let's talk about that. So we've got the family or the clan, and we got our community. Then what comes after the community?
Yeah, so let's start with the clan though, so make sure it's clear. So the clan really is just your family, or who lives in your home, whatever you call that. But what's really, really important is none of it is achievable if you can't first establish clan sovereignty. Clan sovereignty is nobody goes to Grumpy's house and tells him what kind of fence to build. Nobody tells him what to raise. Nobody tells him what to believe. Nobody tells him who to love. Nobody. What goes on in his world on that place is 100% him, and he has complete sovereignty, and with that allows him to have a place to retreat to, that then you can make the decisions and you can do those things. So that is super, super critical. So once you get out beyond the clan, comes up with the mag, and the mag is.
Hang on? Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Of course.
Yes, we've got autonomy. That does not mean that we ignore the people in our community, because sometimes we need a kick in the ass. Let's just be honest. Sometimes we need somebody that's outside our little personal circle to look at us and go, hey man, this would probably be a good thing to do. Let's be honest on that respect too. We have to, that's part of the responsibility of autonomy, is being responsible enough to listen to constructive criticism.
Well, this is interesting because there's been lots of discussion between the word autonomy and sovereignty.
Okay.
In which word fits this situation better? And I've heard lots of different arguments, and I won't bore everybody with that today. But G's 100% correct. You got to be willing to do your part plus some. And I've been at New Year. My challenge to everybody is, what did you do outside of your own circle, outside of your own clan, outside of your own being to further freedom? What was your plus some? When we talk about we have to do our part plus some, if you can't identify what your plus some is, you're not doing it.
Yeah.
If you can't identify it, you're not doing it. I promise you this is true. So that's absolutely true. But I think, again, you have to begin with the building blocks of the Grumpy clan is sovereign. They have their own autonomy. They can do what they want. No one's going to tell them what to do. They don't live under some set of governance imposed by a community. You can do this. You can't do this. Everybody has to have AR-15s, or everyone's wearing red jackets to the store every day. It's never going to work as you go down those roads. So start with the clan, start with sovereignty or autonomy, whatever word you want to use, to fill in there. The circle outside of that's the MAG, the Mutual Assistance Group, and that's made up of a whole bunch of clans. So when the Grumpy Clan and the Tag Clan come together to build freedom and to say no and to build parallel economies and to help each other build barns or fences or even just someone to vent, you've now created that mag. And the beautiful thing is you get enough clans out there and enough mags out there, those mags can get together and we can create the mind. And that's the like-minded. That's all of you. That's everybody out there who's pointed kind of in this direction. And then if we can unite the clans, the mags, and the minds, if we can do that, we can absolutely change the world. And that's how you started. It's exactly how you do it is you get two clans together to build a mag. That's how you do it. And it just snowballs and snowballs and snowballs and snowballs and snowballs.
See, and if anybody were asking what the coolest thing about the community that we live in is not the community itself, it's the fact that we are now interacting with other communities. And we are it's like we are stones cast in the pond, and now our ripples are starting to overlap.
Yep.
And it's creating even more opportunities for everybody.
Yep.
And ultimately that's the ultimate goal. You know, the ultimate goal is not to wall yourself up in your community and not interact with the greater world. The ultimate goal is to build a community that can influence the greater world. You know, and what are some of the ways that a community, once you've gotten to that point, can start affecting the greater world? Say like your counties or your states or whatever. What are some of the ways?
Well, there's millions, but let's start with how we affect the community itself, right? Yeah. By yoking up, because at the end of the day, I know a guy who recently built a house, bought all of the material, and the community came together and built the house for him, and he's now into that house for half of what it would have cost somebody else. That half that we're talking about then gets redeployed back into the community for other reasons or for in their own life. It gets deployed into the local economy. There's so many wonderful things that can come out of that. Then you take that outside of that mind and you start thinking about your local county, and you start penetrating things like a county commissioner seat. The county commissioners in my county, for example, were elected with 225 votes. How many people would you have to get together to yoke up to replace a county commissioner if all it takes is 225 votes?
Yeah. How many people live in this county? Like 30,000, 15,000, 30,000?
50,000 people, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. 250 votes.
I actually don't think it's that much.
Well, even then, I mean, even 1,000 people in the community or the county, 215 votes is way too many.
Yeah. Or
way too little, I should say.
Yeah, you were pretty close. 13,000.
13,000 people. Less than 5% of the people actually took time to vote.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, here's the thing: if we could get either a big mag here, right, or a series of smaller mags here, and you could get 250 people. If you could get 125 people, you're going to swing things.
Mm-hmm.
And we can start then talking about, no, you're not going to raise taxes. In fact, we're going to lower taxes. No, we're not going to collect that property. And we can start making some of those rounds, even in, schools, by sitting on school boards and those kind of things. Those positions, especially in rural America, are not elected by that many people. They're just aren't.
Well, and one of the experiences that we've had recently, and I was amazed at how much just 5 or 6 people showing up and being at the meetings, how much difference that makes. And the smaller the government meeting, the more impact those 5 or 6 people have. And I knew that people showing up had an impact. I just didn't realize how dynamic it was and how much impact you had by doing something like that. It amazed me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was so much that a county commissioner stopped Yoda when she went into his shop down in Topeka and wanted to have a conversation with her. Yeah. That's how much of an impact it had, which is in my mind amazing.
There's a lot we can do, guys. And it goes way even beyond that. I mean, we can create the nice and naughty list. We can look in our county and know who to do business with and who not to do business with. We can create winners and losers. People can say, oh, that's not fair. But wait a second. This is what the Noble Lie does every single day.
Yeah.
This is what we're combating every single day. They tell you that, you are a Democrat or a Republican, and here's your 2 slave masters, and you get to choose between them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think, since you brought that up, what dawned on me today? No, seriously. This was kind of I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of an epiphany moment, and it wasn't anything I didn't know. It kind of came into focus. I realized today that this next election is about not between two people.
No.
This next election, for the first time in my adult life, is literally two Americas.
Mhm.
It's a decision between two types of America and what it's going to be. Before it's always been kick the can down the road, business as usual, and now business as usual has gotten us where it's no longer business as usual,
Mhm.
and that's what the coming election season is. And gonna be honest with you, the vote at the federal level, honestly, I don't think will change anything. Doesn't mean I'm not going to vote. Just I don't think it'll change anything. But the vote at the county and the city level makes a big difference. So yeah, I be involved.
Yeah, there's no political solution for what's going on the federal level.
No, there's not.
No, go vote John Galt for 2024. Write him in. Because I think you talk about two different Americas, but the fact of the matter, it's really kind of 1A and 1B in a lot of ways. Because although I hope that one side wins over the other, the fact of the matter is we still have the swamp, we still have the corruption, we still have the greed. They're still feeding us poison foods. They're still corrupting our children in schools. They're still manipulating us at the bank, telling us things, these magical words like equity and all of these things that go on. Those systems will continue. Those noble systems that have been placed, as you mentioned, for all these years are going to continue regardless of what it is. And I'd much rather see 10 million people vote for John Galt and make some news station somewhere say, "Who is John Galt?"
I'm not gonna argue the fact that they're gonna continue. I'm just saying that one direction is gonna keep us going full speed, the direction we're going, and the other one is gonna put a speed bump in it and maybe allow us a chance to change things before they get out of our control. That's all I'm saying.
Here's the thing, but it's changing now. And 25 governors have now back, and I know you've probably seen this on the news, have now backed Texas and are sending resources to Texas to help combat the border issue, which is freaking fabulous. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely fabulous. You have more and more people standing up every single day in our country, and there's so much to be hopeful for. I think the change is happening right now. Now, certainly, if the election goes one way, we'll help that change accelerate better than another way, but maybe not. Maybe the other way, the shit sandwich continues to pop out on us and looks worse and worse and worse, and that accelerates it. But either way, change is coming, folks.
Oh yeah.
Change is coming.
One way may actually the one way may actually put the soccer moms and NASCAR dads back to sleep, and the way that we're going now may.
That's right.
Just put the paint on them to the point that they finally decide to do something. So
that is exactly right.
Thanks for peeing in my cereal.
I'm good at doing that, G.
I'm trying to stay positive here, and you're messing me up, man.
All I'm saying, guys, is that go vote. Go vote the candidate you want to vote. But I'm going to tell you something. If you put a whole lot of weight in any of them, are going to do anything for you, I think you're mistaken. Yeah. So here's the thing. Go do whatever that makes you feel happy, whatever makes you feel like you've participated, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, go home, put your boots on, put one step in front of the other, get free, go out there and yoke up, right? Mm-hmm. Build community, build connections with other communities, and begin to tell them no.
Why don't you explain to people the concept of yoking up? Because it's simple and a lot of people understand it, but they don't know what you mean by that.
Yeah. So yoke up comes, actually, I learned of it from American Roots, which is another YouTube channel. You guys should go out there and check them out. Jess and Joe, who are at really the beginning of their journey. Not totally at the beginning, because they've got a lot of things done. They've purchased land and they're building, they're doing these things, but they're at the early stages of their community. And this is a term I learned from them. And apparently it comes from the Bible, which would never be able to quote it exactly how that reads, but talks about yoking up two oxen, right? To pull as a team. And if we can yoke each other up to pull as a team, me and G can get yoked together. We will accomplish way more pulling that wagon than we would pulling them in separate directions. So think of G's boat analogy, but yet everyone's tied to each other.
Yeah. I love that name, Anarchy Television.
Yeah.
It's like HBO when it first came out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had something else, but off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is. So we've started building these communities. If somebody is trying to expand their community, they've established a community, and they've got their clans together, and they've got their mutual assistant group or inner circle or whatever you want to call it. How do they start reaching? What are some of the ways that some of the best ways that you found in reaching out and touching contacting people and getting the message out about what is happening in your community, and either promote doing it someplace else or doing it, bringing people in? What's some of the things that you suggest they do?
Yeah, well, we talked about you got to do your part plus some, and so that plus some is somebody inside that community needs to get out, right? And that message needs to be told. And we did it here by going to people like you and me, going out and speaking on community and doing these things. Guys, I can tell you, our community has benefited immensely from the efforts of going and speaking at conventions and festivals and other people's communities. And now it's grown to a point, I get emails all the time from other communities saying, hey, can you tell us how this works for you? Or would you share this with us? And I'm like, sure, we can absolutely talk about it. But what you have to do is leave the house. You're never going to do it sitting on Facebook, and you're never going to do it. You got to get out there and get busy on it. Or I don't want to say you're never going to do it, because maybe you could do it over time in Facebook, little pieces, right? But I don't think you can get to the big picture. I don't think you can get to that end.
And you can be shut down.
And you can be shut down. Right. And so I think you got to get out there. And it's, guys, if you got something, if you're in a community and you have a successful community, every festival will want you to come speak. It's not hard. Just contact them. Yep. I mean, I promise you, and get out there and start meeting people. And then, when you meet other people like, me or G who has a community, reach out. Let's have some conversations. Let's figure out what works good and what didn't work good. And maybe we don't have to go through all the lumps. Maybe we can learn through each other. And maybe we can also celebrate our victories and have someone to talk to in our defeats, because you're going to have both of those as well.
Mm-hmm.
For me, when I was building my house, Mo was building his kind of at the exact same time. And it was really, really neat to be able to call him when I was frustrated, because he was experiencing the same things. And he would call me, kind of at the same time, even though we built totally different and our priorities were totally different and all of those kind of things. But it was nice. But this is also true for the building of a community. I love that I have all kinds of connections to all kinds of communities. I can pick up the phone and call Jim Gale from Food Forest Abundance and say, hey, Jim, have you ran into this? And how did you deal with this? It's wonderful, but you got to get out of your house. You got to do your part plus a little bit.
Yeah. Yoda had to shout that.
Mm-hmm. We all have them.
She loses so much. And, I tell people this is, and I can't believe this. It's so simple, and it's such a thing. It's something that people just don't think about. If you want to start reaching out to people and growing your community locally, have a potluck. My gosh, I was amazed. The first potluck we had, folks, we went out to somebody's farm, and there were maybe 25 families there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 25 families, and it all started with the person that decided to have it told several people about it and said invite 2 people. And it just grew, and we had like 25 families. There were about 60, 70 people there, encompassed 5 counties. Some of those people I've never interacted with again after that initial one, but some of the people that we met there live close to us and have become really good friends and really integral parts of the community for us.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It's crazy how something so simple as breaking bread together one time can change your life and change the direction of the community, because our community became very much stronger after that very first one.
Oh, yes.
Right. Yeah. We exchanged contact information. We made a list of what people's skills were. We made a list of who had what to barter. Mm-hmm. Started a newsletter. It was the very beginning of our first ever newsletter started out of that, So it's something that everybody can do. But again, like Tag said, got to make the decision to do it, and you have to put yourself out there.
Yep. Guys, quit being afraid. I'm going to tell you something. When you stand up to them, they typically back down. So, just don't be afraid.
Yeah, don't be afraid. There was a lot more of the community that you two are talking about 2 generations ago around here is degraded sense. Yes, that degradation of social capital.
Yeah, but
You
it's done
know,
on purpose. It was done
Mhm.
100% on purpose.
One of the big things that is a problem in our area, and especially when you get out west of us, is family farms are dying left and right
Yeah.
because the economic opportunities aren't there because
Yep.
the social capital has been completely erased out of these small towns.
Yep.
You know, Walmart may be a great asset for getting things inexpensively. It has destroyed rural communities across this country, though. You cannot debate that. I don't care what anybody says. It's undebatable in my opinion.
Well, and
Um,
I think the constant barrage, G, of advertising and of, go be a video game maker, and, the constant barrage of what success looks like as a Rolls Royce, or what success looks like as a, apartment in New York City, or whatever it is, has conditioned the youth to not want to be on the farm. And then the government comes in with economic war and make it hard for it, right? And taxes and all of the things that go on. There's not a lot of incentive, or at least there's not any advertised, right, programmed incentive to stick around. They're trying to keep them all into these 15-minute cities. They're trying to push them all away. We just have to be big enough to turn it off, say no. That's it.
Speaking of 15, okay, anybody that doesn't know what a 15-minute city is, it is a Agenda 2030 idea that they will bust cities up into little groupings where everything that you need to survive is within 15-minute walk of you. And they are putting it into implementation in England in certain places. And they're literally putting these little wooden barriers, they're planters in the road, and they're forcing people out onto the outer roads, or you have to pay a fine. God bless the British, man. I love those people. People have started burning those barriers. They've got the security cameras to make sure nobody's violating the 15-minute city with their cars. They're taking grocery bags and climbing to the top of the poles and putting bags over the cameras. That's what we need. So
The colony.
that sort of civil disobedience is what I'm not saying go out and do it, but you have to be willing to put yourself out there to
Yeah.
that extent if you need to.
Yeah, yeah. Go watch the series The Colony, and I'm telling you to go out there and create peaceful civil disobedience.
Yeah, peaceful systems. Okay, burning stuff down is not
Not
peaceful.
the answer.
It's
Peaceful
not the
civil
answer.
disobedience. Understand your rights.
Right.
You know,
You know, but
understand that if you're pulled over driving down the road, if that police officer cannot articulate to you a reasonable, articulable suspicion of a crime, you do not have to ID. Understand your rights. This is what I mean by fighting back, right? Do the little things, that help you be free, and that you've been rewarded for by being born in this country by all the people who have come before us.
yep. So sharpshooter, we're weaker individually, and they know it, and that's what having community does. I use the analogy of a fascine, and a fascine is a bundle of arrows. You see it in the claw of the American eagle emblem. You see it in all sorts of the not doc. Well, anyway, it's a bundle of arrows. So you take one arrow, you can break that arrow very easily. But the more arrows you put together, the harder it becomes to break the group. And eventually you reach a point where the bundle is unbreakable. And that's what ultimately the strength in building community. That's what it does. Because it gives you the power and the courage to make hard decisions.
Mm-hmm.
To make the decision to go live a lifetime free.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure if I had not spent all the years going to Midwest Preparedness Festival, when it came time for me to make the decision to stand up for my individual the sovereignty of my body and tell them no and take steps to become free,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what that decision would have come and looked like. I'm not even sure if the decision would have been made the same if I did not have like-minded people around me. And we were geographically removed almost 200 miles, right, Tag?
Yep.
When I made that decision, but I had people that we had created this social capital together, and it gave me the strength to make that decision. And I know a whole bunch of people, that made that decision by themselves, and they've suffered for it, emotionally. They've suffered for it emotionally, and that's what we don't want to happen. We don't want people making these decisions by themselves. We want them making it inside the umbrella of the greater community and the greater idea of living a life done free.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know?
community is a critical part. I don't see how you'd ever do it. I don't necessarily think that you can get to 50% free without community. I mean, I don't know how you would get, and maybe you could get to 50, but you're certainly not going to get to 60 or 70, right? But I think community plays a integral role in how we go through this and who we depend on, because you can't do it alone. You got to depend on somebody. And so my choice is I get to depend on Grumpy, or I get to go depend on Biden. Those are my choices. Right. And so we have to pick it. But I think I don't see how you get even close to it without community.
I don't think you can even get to 25%, man. And the thing that building the community does, so that I was trying to come up with the concept that I could share with people at the festivals. Mm-hmm. That was really simple and easily explainable, and people could grasp it. And that's where I came up with the 3 pillars of homesteading. Community, in my opinion, is the most important one. But with community, your food sovereignty becomes way easier because you're not doing it by yourself. I know that in the summertime, if all my tomatoes fail, I know that there are people in our community. If I need tomatoes, I can go, hey, you got a surplus of communities, and it's one of the permaculture concepts is sharing abundance. Mm-hmm. And that's what you do. That's what you can do in a community. And the modern self-sufficiency. If it weren't for community, I changed out a window attenuator on the truck this weekend by myself. 4 years ago, I would have taken it to a mechanic, and I would have paid a lot more money than what I paid to fix it. But because we've got community, and we've got some people in our community that have shown me how to do things, I can do it myself. You taught me how to build a house, and that's why these rooms are as square as they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think something you said that's really, I want to edit that you said that you're talking about sharing abundance. And I think that's definitely true, but also underabundance. And I think what I mean by that is if somebody's in a bind, and firewood is a great example, right? Mm-hmm. We had a fire, all my firewood burned down outside. We lost the shed. We lost my firewood. Can we help? The community members would all donate a cord of wood. Right. They would. Even though they planned on using that for themselves as the year went on, we would figure it out, right? So I don't think it's not just a case of abundance, it's a case of looking out for each other.
Oh yeah. When the coop fire happened, mm-hmm. There was so much going on, I could not take care of Angela, and I called B and asked her to come over and
that's right, and
help out, and she immediately came over and lent a shoulder for her to lean on while that was going on.
Yep.
And it that what you said cannot be overstated.
Yeah.
The ability to weather hardship as a group is a lot easier with community.
Right. I think it's the voluntarism of underabundance.
Exactly. This kind of concerns me. We got Jules in there promoting me running for office, and then Sharpshooter's like, yeah, I'd vote for Grumpy. Well, I would hope. I'll take that one. I'll take that one as a win. But yeah, you guys don't want me in a political position.
Yeah, Grumpy. I would not get too excited because I think everybody in here would vote for a prune over Biden.
Yeah, exactly.
Just saying.
I take it as a win because somebody's saying they're not going to vote for Biden. That was what I was. That's the point I was getting to. I would hope that I would be better than Biden.
Yep.
But like you said, a prune. Probably.
Or a Marine, either one.
Hey, just give us some crowns. Well, and that's one of the things that I've learned in the past couple of years too is it's okay to be grumpy.
Yeah.
So it's okay to be grumpy, but you cannot let it consume you.
Yep.
And that's what it's really easy. It's okay. Let's go there. Let's talk about some of the hardships. Whenever you whenever you make the decision
Mhm.
to pursue a life done free, and you make the decision to intentionally start building a community, as
Mhm.
you know, a group of people.
Yep.
In your experience, what are some of the things that you'll run into that on a personal level and as on a community level will act as a roadblock, will act
Oh
as
my goodness.
something that will derail you quicker than
Oh
you
yeah.
think if you let it.
Oh, there's so many. I mean, it's we talk about new level, new devil,
Mhm.
right? And the ripple effect. And we talk about all of these things, but shit, G, this as good as anybody knows this. There ain't a single thing I did that went according to plan.
Oh,
Right. I go out and I say, hey, I'm going to dig a well. Ring, ring, ring. What does a well cost? $3,300. I can do this right on. Woo! $3,300 until the well produces 2.5 gallons per minute. And I learn I need $12,000 more in order to put the cisterns and everything in that I need to get enough water in order to supply my family water. So I think those things come all along, but then there's the community side of that too, which is you get a good buddy who goes and we had this happen, bought this beautiful piece of land only to find out there was no water on it. And then that sends a ripple effect through other things, right? That sends an apple that affects everybody inside of the community. And so, but I think it's not about what happens to us. It's about how we choose to deal with what happens to us. It's about the attitude we take right then. Your beautiful bride said earlier that there's a lot of failures in it, and we fail, but we can also look at that as there was a lot of training involved, and look at the great things that I learned, through this process. Gee, what did you learn after your chicken fire? You lost 300 chickens. You lost a bunch of money. You lost a bunch of time. But what'd you learn? And how valuable is what you learned?
and I'm still working on fixing these things. Is number one, I need a year-round water source.
Yep.
Number two, you need to come up with a way to heat your coops that does not involve heat lamps or open heat sources. You need to come up with a way, and we actually are working on that now. This year we had the brooder heaters out there whenever the chicks were feathering out, but I took them off. We lost out of 60 chicks. We've lost 48 of them so far because of the cold weather the past 2 weeks.
Yep.
And it's another learning lesson. I have to come up with a better way to keep the chickens warm in the coop, because we lost quite a few adults too. This is the past 2 weeks have been rough, folks. Seriously, you know.
Yeah,
But and so
but we've lost a few birds. But imagine if you had to learn this lesson when that was your food source, when you couldn't go to a grocery store. I mean, you get a chance to learn these lessons today. We should celebrate them. We should be excited about them.
Like we say around here, when it comes to food, mistakes with food or missteps with food, at least we're not starving.
That's right.
I'd rather learn it now than down the road, which is why start building that community now, because it's not going to happen overnight.
That's right.
It's not going to happen. But the good news is, this is something I figured out. The good news is, Tag, it took us a long time to get where we are. Mm-hmm. But by going out and sharing our experiences with people, we are cutting that time, say, in half for them. Mm-hmm. And those people are able to start building these communities, and they can go around these pitfalls that we had. And when they go out and they share with people, it's going to cut the time down even more for that we'll call it third generation community building, whatever you want to call it. And by sharing our experiences, people are coming to the place we are much quicker than we did.
Yes.
Which is, in my opinion, that's awesome. I love that. I love the fact that we're able to share like that.
Every single community member that comes now has the benefit of all the community members that came before. 100%.
Yep. Absolutely. Gosh, go back. You asked me that question about, what's the thing I'm happiest about outside the circle, and I really didn't have an answer, because honestly, I never thought about it.
Yeah, I know. But that's our job, G. That is you and I's job, is to spark those questions, right?
Yeah.
It's our job.
And if I were to answer that question now, mm-hmm. that would be the thing I'm most proud of. The fact that we're sharing our experiences, and it's helping people. It's actually helping people. You can literally see it happening quicker, which is awesome.
Yep.
But Angela's yelling at me in chat.
Now, Angela's wanting you to look at Jules' comment above, I would guess to say.
Yeah. Yeah, she's right. That's we've had that talk. Hers. Oh, she's yelling at me now. Hers. Go up. Hang on a second. I gotta find her comment. What'd she say?
Whose comment?
Angela's comment.
Oh shit.
Oh, okay. There we go. I have heard a lot of people say they are hesitant because wives can't get along, or husbands. I've heard that at festivals.
It's usually wives.
Yeah, yeah. How long do you push through to build a community? You know what? That's a great question. Number one. Here's my advice. And tag taught Angela this lesson. She knows the answer. That's why she asked the question. Don't bring it up with your spouse. Do not be the one to have that argument with your spouse. Do not argue with them. If they are not on board, don't argue with them. Find somebody that they like, or at least respect. They don't necessarily have to like them, at least respect them. Have that person bring up the conversation and start the conversation, because you will get a lot more mileage out of that than talking with your spouse. It's because of the familiarity you have with your spouse and all that. And Ted, you want to tell the story about how you taught Angela this lesson, or do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead. This way you can sleep tonight.
Yeah. So anybody that has not heard this story, we used to do range days, and we'd all get together. And she's mad at me now. She's in the other room yelling at me. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'll be nice. So I was trying to teach Angela how to shoot. We were both getting extremely frustrated, it wasn't the first time I tried to teach her to shoot. Tag came over and said, "Let me do it. Let me show her. You go over here and you do something else." I was like, "Go ahead, man." So he worked with her, and in about 15 minutes, she had tears running down her face. She was calling him all kinds of dirty names. But the whole time she was doing that, she was pinging steel like she'd been doing it all day long. And it dawned on me when I saw that happening. That's when I came to the realization that you never try to talk your spouse into it. You have somebody else do that, because they will open the door and they will start the conversation, and the other person will come on board. And so that's the answer to her question is what do you do with those spouses that are not at the same point as you are?
Well, I think part of the question was when they don't get along, and when people don't get along. And so I think there's another side to that answer, which is, yeah, I think to Grumpy's point, that's absolutely true. And, the best thing for a woman coming through this life is another woman.
Now she's in here telling me I'm not answering the right question. Get the dog.
Okay. Yeah. You're not. Well, I think what she's asking too is how do you, a lot of people complain because the wives don't get along, but here's the thing: we got to quit letting them off the hook.
Oh, okay.
Right. I'm telling you, my wife knows with 100% certainty that she has a responsibility to do her part plus a little bit.
Tag is my favorite now.
Oh, you're her. You're her.
I knew that all along. We got to quit letting them off the hook too. It's not enough, Grumpy, for you to do your part plus some. Angela has to do her part plus some too. And you have a responsibility as her husband to hold her accountable to that, just as she has a responsibility to you as a wife to hold you accountable to that. My wife tells me all the time, oh, you can do that. You can do a little more, or whatever it is. So, I think if you're committed to community, whether you're a boy or a girl, if you're truly committed and you're willing to take those extra steps and you're willing to do your part plus a little bit, you won't have those problems. The problem is you get that entitlement mentality, or you get that why me, or I don't want to, or you get all of that. And luckily for me, I don't deal with it. But if B wasn't pulling her weight, I'd be the first to tell her. I promise you, I'd be the first to tell her.
Yeah. And it can cause friction. And I'm telling you right now, once you decide to make the decision to pursue a lifetime free, and you've figuratively burned your boats like we were talking about, and you're going down this and you're facing all these new challenges that you've never faced before, you're going to be stressed. Your relationships are going to be stressed, and then add kids that aren't on board with it. add kids into the mix. It just adds a whole new dynamic that you have to deal with. And again, that's another good thing about community now. You don't go you don't go bash your spouse to somebody else. You don't do that.
You do not do that.
You don't do that. But you can go and it's okay to vent.
Mhm.
You know, there's a proper way to vent and there's a wrong way to vent. And I that's something that I've had to learn, you know. But you take counsel and whatever and somebody that you trust and respect and you take it back and you start doing it. You know,
Yeah.
we just started a men's Bible study a
Mm.
couple weeks ago, and I it's a bunch of guys in the community, and I came out of the last one, and the discussion we had, I went and I apologized to Angela for something that I did to her, you know, and you know, so yeah, but I got counsel. I the topic came up in the Bible study, and I took counsel and was able to put it into effect in our lives, and it made a difference. You know?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you have to recognize that once you take that step, once you make the decision, as you're talking about, you've made the decision. If you made the decision to be part of community, you got to be a community. You know, B has said to me a million times that if you want to be a good neighbor, you got to be a good neighbor. Right? If you want good neighbors, you got to be a good neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In the end, so you have to be committed to that. And I promise you, if I was complaining, like, let's say, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, she'd be like, you signed up for it. What are you complaining to me for?
Yeah.
You know, and she'd call me on it, which then I'm like, oh, wait, yeah, you're kind of right. You're right.
The big question about not liking people and having friction with people. You know, and that's something that we've had to deal with.
Of course.
You know,
And we'll
my take on it is you don't have to like everybody in the community.
That's right.
All right. You don't have the right as a community member to tell somebody to choose. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and this is something there was an incident. I'm not going to discuss it. There was an incident, and I just let everybody know. I said, I'm not asking people to choose. I just want you to realize that if here's my reasoning, and I will step aside. I will not ask people to choose, but I will pull back and you guys do what you want to do. I wasn't telling somebody to choose. All right, that was not the thing. But that goes back to the whole autonomy and sovereignty thing, is because the way our community is built. If this person that I didn't like came into the community, to be honest, at this point he would probably be a very good asset. I don't have to deal with him if I don't want to, right? I don't, and I don't, you know. So yeah, you can not like people in your community. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay to be human, and it's okay. Yep. You know, don't hold grudges. I don't hold a grudge. I just anyway. But that's an offshoot of something, and it's important.
If I can add to that, G, and I'll be the first to tell you, and I've told people this publicly too, inside of our community, there are people I like better than others, and for different reasons. Mm-hmm. Right there are guys in our community that if you were to ask me, Tag, who's the first person you'd want to go drink a beer with? That would be different than who's the first person you want to go do a project with, which would be different than who's the first, right? So at the end of the day, it's kind of like when your kids say, who do you love more, me or Susie? Well, honey or son, I love you both equal, just different. Right? So it's kind of a lot the same thing. There are people in our community who I like better than others, but the fact of the matter of any one of them could call me and I would come help.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you can't let your personal pride destroy your community. Yeah. That's part of the responsibility of being a community member. You got to put your pride aside, you know, seriously. It's probably one of the most important.
And I think Jules said it really well right there, but also the diversity, the different personalities, the different backgrounds, the different things also are wonderful too. There's so many great learning things that come from it. She's 100% right.
Yeah. You know, so yeah, it's a growing experience.
Yep.
You know, I've grown more in the past 2.5 years than I did in the previous 20 or 30, I think. Seriously.
Yeah.
You know,
but I'm growing every day. And, you know, it's funny. I get a lot of questions all the time about how should this go? I'm like, how the hell do I know?
Yeah.
I mean, I am winging this, you know, I mean, I don't know, you know, I don't know. you know.
Okay. We do not like we don't like saying that we teach people stuff.
Correct.
And this is something that Tag taught me. So
Yep.
full credit to Tag on this. All right. But we're not teachers. What we do is we share our experiences, because whenever you start talking about teaching, unless somebody's paying me money, then I'm a teacher.
Correct.
Because they're paying me to share to give them knowledge. We are sharing our experiences, because if you say you're a teacher, you're creating a teacher student vibe, and that's not good. So we want to share our experiences.
Yep.
All right. And I just lost my train of thought.
Well, while you're thinking about it, let me add to that.
Okay.
Anybody in my life who comes up to me and tells me they're an expert in something, I question them instantly.
Oh yeah.
No matter what it is, because the fact of the matter, we have a guy we know who's a master electrician. He told me one day, he said, the fact is electricity's still a lot theory.
Yeah.
So how can we have a master electrician if electricity's still a theory?
Exactly.
Right. So like, I'm always sensitive to those things. Or someone says, hey, I'm a master gardener. I don't know about you guys. We've been gardening for 20 years and I'm learning every year still.
Absolutely.
We raise bees every year. We learn more than we learned the year before. I've been building stuff since I was a kid, and there's so much I don't know. There's more that I don't know than what I do know, probably.
Yep.
That
goes back. That's what I was going to say. I talked about the teacher because I want to preface what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
As a community member, you need to have the soul of a teacher and the heart of a student. Mm-hmm. You got to be willing to share your experiences with people, as well as accepting other people's experiences into your toolkit, if you will.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, tell me and I might forget. Show me and I'll learn. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Yep. Oh, Tag's terrible at that, guys. You talk about mean. I was that cabin that I hated. He would come over there and I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I could slap some stuff together, but it would not stay. And he would show me how to do something once, and he would go back over to his house and start doing his own thing and leave me to my own. And it's the reason why I hated that thing with a passion, because by the time I got far enough along on it, I realized that all the work I'd done to that point was just learning work, and it was not very good. It was not very good.
How much more equipped are you to build today?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what comes next. You know the process now.
Yep. You taught me to fish. That's
it was definite. The best thing I could have done for you.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I still remember some of the lessons you taught me out there on that stupid concrete pad.
Yep. It's the best way to learn, in my opinion. I like that. And I do that to people all the time.
Yep.
Like, how do you do this? So like, wire an outlet. Okay. Here, you put this here. All right. See you later. Finish your house.
I will say this. It's taken Darren showing me mechanical stuff on the car. It takes a lot more showing me how to do that than it did you showing me how to construct stuff. It's not that it's any harder. It's just it's different, and I process it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, sometimes personalities just don't. Exactly.
It doesn't mean to hate them. I don't hate anybody. And
I try not to. It's something I'm working on.
I always try to remember that even the flaming liberals that are out there talking about, we need to install litter boxes in a classroom. Everybody's at a different place in their journey. There was a day that I became awake, and there's a day they'll become awake too. Now, unfortunately, by the time they become awake, it's going to be way, way, way too late. But the fact of the matter is, I think it's our job to help push people along their journey, not to, criticize them for where they're at in their journey.
Okay, I'm gonna rephrase what I said. I don't hate people. It's not that it's not hating. It's my tolerance for certain people and certain ideas is very, very almost non-existent at times, and I have a hard time not voicing that. I'm getting a lot better at it though.
Yeah, but I think you said it almost right. I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of behavior out there that I hate. There's a lot of actions out there that I hate, but there's not really anybody. Right. I mean, I don't like what they're doing.
Okay, here we go. Here's a good question. Big B, what is the best way to ask a mentor? Well, first off, figure out who you want to mentor you and what you want them to teach you.
Right.
or mentor you on. First
Right.
off,
Right. Yes. Seek out the person that's great at what you want to become great at.
right,
You know, and then ask them. And if what they tell you is they're an expert, run.
right. Well, and we've had this conversation before. You know, we are reflections of the five people that we associate with the most.
Yeah.
All right. So if you want to become a better person in any given field, don't be the smartest person in the room on that field.
Mm-hmm.
Surround yourself with people that will show you things and share their experiences with you and lift you up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and whenever you get to the point where you know this stuff, be the smartest, be the best person in the room with the people that need lifting up, and that's how you're sharing your experience. It's not that you're an expert in it. It's not that you're any better at it than anybody else. It's just you've reached out and you've asked people and they've shared their experience with you, and then you're passing it on. Seriously. So.
Yeah, I think back to the mentor question real quick. But if you're looking for one, again, find somebody out there. But I really would encourage you to listen to the way they answer a question and, you know, go through that. I've mentored a few people through the course of my life, and a good mentor you won't like very well. I promise you. You know, you won't, because what they'll do is they'll call you on all your excuses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all have them, guys. I make them too, right? You know, it's what I love about my wife. She'll call me on my bullshit, you know?
Yep. Amber, glad you can make it. Hardest
Hey,
thing
Amber.
is learning to add the hardest thing. Exactly. In fact, I just did a video on that, and it's going to come out in a week or so. And it's pride. That's pride. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And pride's not a bad thing.
Mm-mm.
Too much pride is a bad thing, and it becomes a hindrance. And that's exactly what forces people to not ask for help. And I say this from experience. And remember, when I'm pointing my finger at you, I've got three pointing back at me. All right. So that's.
Well, but this is where the chit argument comes into too. You know, I'm never afraid to ask for help because I know that I've put my time in. You know what I mean? Because we're talking about like the chits and the social, you know, currency and all that stuff from before. And so, Amber Martin, I know, in your guys' case, you paid your dues. It's okay to ask for help, because guess what? Pretty quick here, there's going to be somebody who moves somewhere that we're going to go build a house for, and they're going to call, and I know for a fact what's going to happen, right? Sharpshooter will be being sharpshooter. Right? It's what it is. So don't be afraid to ask for help when you put your dues in and you're involved. This is why, you know, like we talk about community, people say, how do I get into the community? Be involved. This is the key thing to the whole thing. Be involved. And if you do that, you then have the right to say, hey, I got this big project coming up, come help.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Well, Tag, we've run up to an hour and a half. I like keeping these about an hour and a half, because once it goes over an hour and a half, people don't like watching it on the replay. So I want to keep people involved. Before we go, you got any final comments on the whole idea of community and what people need to be thinking about and doing?
Yeah, you know, community is such a dynamic, you know, topic, and there's no simple, easy answer, and every community, you know, is a little bit different. But I can assure everybody that's listening to me tonight, you won't do it alone. You can't do it alone. And the forces that are out there against us, and you know, you mentioned them earlier, the food system and the education system and the banking system, right? And the judicial branch and the executive branch and the legislative branch and all of these things that are fighting us every single day. You're never going to be able to stand up to them alone. You have to create community. And you can say, oh, I don't want to break OPSEC. You can say whatever you want to say. And well, what will happen is you'll have to face them all by yourself. And that's a very, very bad thing. So again, I would include everybody to go yoke up. It doesn't mean you're giving up your sovereignty. It doesn't mean you're giving up your, you know, autonomy. It doesn't mean any other things. That what it means is you get yoked up with somebody else to go and, you know, try to live that lifetime free. And you can do it, guys. If I can do it, if Grumpy can do it, I promise you guys can do it.
You're right. Exactly. I'll just add on to that. You know, the three pillars. You can work as hard as you want on food sovereignty, and you can work as hard as you want on modern self-sufficiency. You will never get them to the point they need to be unless you build that third pillar of community. And it's probably the hardest one to to start doing, but once you start it, it becomes very easy and it's easily maintainable. Be involved, make the decision first. That's the big thing. Make the decision and just be involved. You
Yeah.
know, go ahead and answer that question.
I was gonna say, I hope you didn't mind I added this in there because I think this
No,
is
no,
really,
go
really
ahead. Go
important.
ahead.
Big B, the single greatest thing you can do for my mission and for Grumpy's mission is to go be the difference. The single greatest thing you can do is talk to somebody at Tractor Supply. The biggest thing you can do is go out there and do it too. And unite, yoke up with them freedom-minded people and go push forward and take that one step and do your part plus a little bit. And it needs to go on in every part of this country. It would be honoring. I would be honored for you to do those things as I would anybody else in here. The greatest way you can support the mission is put one foot in front of the other.
Absolutely. I think that the greatest thing you could do is come back in a year and say, hey,
Yeah.
I want you guys to come meet my community.
Yes.
That would be the greatest thing I could think anybody could do. Seriously. Just go out and like you said, make a difference.
Yeah.
Make a difference. Okay, Tag. Let's tell them about your hat. Tell them a little bit about
Grid Down.
Grid Down.
Yeah, so the idea of Grid Down came that we would try to create originally it was just for the community. Could I find a way to put solar systems together that were less complicated and a little less money, and then I could help the whole community get off grid, and then a little bit of advertising, and it kind of took off. And so now we're marketing these solar systems all over. They're really neat. They got the best warranty in the country, 25 years. They're super plug and play. They're about as easy as they get to install. And it was what started as an idea of just, kind of benefit my community, took off to be more, which happens to me all the time, which is kind of cool, I guess. So I don't promote it as much as I probably should on my channel and some of those things. I should probably get better at that. But I think energy independence, whether you do Grid Down or you do anywhere else, it makes no difference. Energy independence is critical. Energy is one of those things that they can wrap their noose around your neck and hold you hostage and make you do their bidding, all because you're dependent upon their energy, which is something we're so dependent on. So again, whether it's Grid Down, whether it's Snyder, whether it's Midnight Solar, whether it's whoever it is, go get energy independent. It's super important.
Right. And I put the freesteading.com logo scrolling on the bottom. Folks, if you're looking for a place to find like-minded people, freesteading.com is a great place to start. It's free to join. It's an alternative to Facebook and these other things. It's like-minded people out there. Go sign up for free. There's the best place, in my opinion, on freesteading.com are the state pages. There's a state page for every single state, and then for international, right?
Yep.
Go join the one for your state or wherever you're thinking about moving to, and say hi. And I guarantee you will meet people that are like-minded, and you can start a conversation with. You may not become friends. You may never meet them in person, but it's going to start the conversation. That's the hardest part of starting a community, is starting the conversation. So go there. Plus the calendar. Talked about the calendar. All these festivals that we're talking about. We're trying to get as many of them on that calendar as possible, and you can find what you need. Put your own stuff on there if you're doing something, holding classes or starting your own festival. Put them on there and advertise it there. Where else can people find you? Grid Down. Where else?
Yeah, so you can find me on Freesteading. You can find me. Grid Down. You won't really find me on there, but you can buy solar stuff there. But also my YouTube channel, Life Done Free. I'm also on Facebook at Life Done Free. So you can find me in any of those places, or attend some festivals around the country. You'll probably see me at some of them too.
We need to do a video about Life Done Free, about the logo Life Done Free, because it's kind of interesting, because I use it as our tagline, and you used it as your thing, and it's kind of interesting how it all came about.
Yeah,
I think it's an interesting story. We probably ought to do a video on that sometime, and talk about exactly what it means.
Yeah. I think a free done life, or a freedom life, or in a life done free, is super important.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Folks, if you want to find us, you find us here on the grumpyacresfarm.com, or grumpyacresfarm.com. That's our online store. You can find stuff there. You can find one of these cool Never Alone hats. These things, The Nasrani hat, the symbol there is not only spiritual, it's physical, because as long as you've got community, you are never alone.
Yep.
That's why I wear this when we give our talks about community and stuff. Find us. We're going to be at Midwest Preparedness Festival, Self-Reliance Festival. We're lined up for there. Are you gonna make it out to that one? I know both of us have been talking about not doing as many festivals. It's hard, man.
Yeah, they asked me to come speak again at Self-Reliance. I don't know if I'm going to. I'm still kind of chewing on it. You know, I've got my hands full right now. That ends tomorrow. A lot of that heavy lifting, so I'll be able to think about it a little bit. So I'm not sure which ones I'm going to. They asked me to go speak at the Exit and Build Summit in Texas. Jason in Kentucky has asked me to come back, but I don't know. I'm going to wait through next week, and then I'll start figuring out what I want to do.
It takes a lot of time away from the homestead, doesn't it?
Oh, and
as important as it is, it's hard.
It is super hard. Me and B, and we're going to talk about this in our live tomorrow night. So everybody that doesn't know, we do a live at 7:00 every Friday. But we've done our 2024 goals, and there's like 37 items I'm going to try to get done this next year. Oh, it's a lot, man. And I'll never get them all, I'm sure. But either way, it just takes a lot of weight. Every one of these festivals I go to burns me a week, right? And so, again, just
am I going to be able to come over and see your vision board?
Yeah, of course.
You're gonna cut out stuff out of magazines and put them up on the wall. So
I'll email it. It's not that sexy, but it's in a spreadsheet.
There you go. That's another way to build community, man.
Yep.
Make a spreadsheet of what you want to do.
Yep.
All right, folks. Listen. Thank you for showing up. You guys, the chat always makes it worthwhile.
Yeah.
Tag, thank you for taking time out of your night and joining me. We gotta see you next Wednesday.
I'll see you next Wednesday. Yep.
Next Wednesday. We should probably see if we could do a live at that event.
Yeah, that'd be really, really crazy. I don't know if we could manage it all, but maybe. I'll have to ask what their internet's like over there.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that. That'd be kind of fun. I think people would really enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, folks, listen. Go out there, like Tag's channel, like I say, go out there tonight or tomorrow and live a life free. All right. Take care.
You guys.